Okay, we'll give it another minute and hopefully we'll get all our, I think we do have a quorum. Which is always our fear these days. It's been, it's coming down to us, folks. That's it. We got to show up every month.
With pleasure.
We are going to get started. Hopefully Commissioner Jekowitz and Commissioner Cox will join us soon. So I'm going to apologize for my, been a little hoarse. Just got back from New Orleans, actually, this last weekend. Wasn't there for the Final Four, although I was rooting for Duke. That didn't make it. And that was quite the game, the final game. But I was down there actually with a speaking engagement at LSU, which is a pretty incredible campus down in Baton Rouge. Anyway, today we're here at the Commission of Chicago Landmarks. This is a regular meeting on Thursday, April 7th. I'm going to call the meeting to order with the roll call. So starting, because the first two are not here, Commissioner Burns.
I'm present.
And you can see and hear me. Yes?
I can.
Okay, great. Commissioner Hughes?
Present, I can see and hear you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ponce?
Good afternoon. I can see and hear you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Tolliver?
Present, I can see and hear you.
Thank you. And as Commissioner Jekowitz and Commissioner Cox joined us, I'll announce when they do show up. I believe we do have a quorum. I'm Commissioner Wong, and I believe we have a quorum. You may notice that I did not call Commissioner Lynn Osmond's name. Lynn tendered her resignation to the commission last month after announcing that she'll be taking on the new role of President and CEO of Choose Chicago, the city's official tourism agency. She served that same role for the Chicago Architecture Center for 25 years. Although she's not at today's meeting, we wanted to thank her for her service to the commission and wish her the best of luck in her new role. In 2020, Governor Pritzker signed Public Act 101-0640, making certain amendments to the Open Meetings Act so that we, along with other boards and commissions, can continue to host virtual meetings during the COVID-19 public health emergency, provided that certain conditions are met. One of those conditions is that I, as head of the Commission, Chicago Landmarks, determined that an in-person meeting of the Commission, Chicago Landmarks, and its permanent review committee are not practical or prudent. I want to make sure our virtual meetings meets all the conditions of the Open Meetings Act as amended. Therefore, I'm making a determination pursuant to sections 7E2 of the Open Meetings Act that an in-person meeting of the Commission of Chicago Landmarks and its permit review committee is not practical or prudent. Similarly, I'm also making a determination pursuant to section 7E5 that because of the disaster as declared by the governor, it is unfeasible for at least one member of the Commission of Chicago Landmarks or its chief administrative officer or its chief legal officer to be physically present at the meeting place for either meeting. Pursuant to a resolution adopted by the Commission of Chicago Landmarks on June 4th, 2020 regarding the chairman's emergency rulemaking powers, I issued emergency rules governing the conduct of remote public commission meetings and provisions for remote public participation effective February 18, 2022. These rules are posted on the Commission's website. In line with those emergency rules, today's regular Commission meeting is a virtual meeting being simulcast to the general public via live streaming. Commission meetings have been held virtually since May of 2020. Meetings are structured to minimize the chances for technical difficulties. Members of the general public have been encouraged to submit written statements in advance of the meeting, and these have been posted on the Commission's website and are available for viewing during the virtual meeting at www.chicago.gov/ccl. Per their emergency rules, verbal statements by the general public for all agenda items will take place at the beginning of the meeting, so those wishing to speak at today's meeting should be signed in the Zoom meeting at this time. Before we hear the staff presentations on the agenda items and ask to hear from owners or applicants and their teams, we will open the floor up to members of the general public who wish to comment on the items to be heard in today's agenda. Members of the public wishing to comment should use the raise hand function of Zoom to indicate that they wish to speak. Members of the public not using a smartphone or a computer and instead phoning into the meeting should press *9 to activate the raise hand function and do the same to deactivate. I or the meeting facilitator will call out the names one by one and unmute those people. Once unmuted, speakers will give their full name and organization, if any, they represent. Each speaker is allotted 3 minutes to speak. Once all members of the public wishing to make a comment have been given an opportunity to do so, we'll go through the agenda. I'll ask that owners or applicants and their representatives, as well as aldermen, wait to speak until after staff presentations have been made on their agenda item. So, are there members of the general public who would like to make comments about agenda item 2, the preliminary landmark recommendation for the Paseo Bourquois gateway flags at West Division Street on Artesian Avenue, 2400 West, and Mozart Street, 2800 West? And are there any?
Chairman, we have one hand raised by Preservation Chicago.
Wonderful.
Hi, this is Mary Lou Seidel. Can you hear me?
Thank you, Mary Lou. Yes, we can.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Chairman Wong and fellow commissioners. We are grateful for the opportunity to support the landmark nomination for the Paseo Bourquois gateway flags on Division Street. The Puerto Rican flags that stand proudly on either side of Division Street mark a commercial corridor that has undergone some tremendous revival, thanks in part to the effort to install those flags as a demonstration of pride from and for the Puerto Rican community, lifting up Puerto Rican heritage and culture as well. These 55-foot tall flags are a monumental gateway to a community of people who are too often underrepresented in our landmarking process historically. We're proud to be a part of a city that honors its rich and diverse history, and we're excited to see this landmark nomination moving forward. Like the Little Village Archway before it, we also encourage the future landmark of the Chinatown Gateway as well. Chicago would benefit from elevating a structure that is such an integral piece of our city's Asian history and culture. Thank you as always for your great work you do. Please, thank you for your time today. Thanks.
Thank you, Mary Lou.
Sure.
Okay. Is there anybody else here to speak on that item? Doesn't look like it. Are there members of the general public who would like to comment on the third agenda item, the report for the Department of Planning and Development on the Monumental Baptist Church building at 729 East Oakwood Boulevard?
Chairman, we have two people raising their hands. First one is Jose Lopez.
Thank you. Mr. Lopez?
Yes, I want to obviously the executive director of the and I wanted to obviously speak on behalf of this incredible designation of Paseo Boricua flags that I helped to establish along with Alderman Ocasio in 19. Now a vibrant center of Puerto Rican life in Chicago between Division and Mozart. This area has become the heartbeat of Chicago's Puerto Rican community, and it contains amazing architecture. Senior building, the Estancia Bickerdike building, and the Nancy Franco Maldonado Paseo Boricua Arts Building, which obviously have elements, architectural elements of Old San Juan, and provide a very important visibility for the Puerto Rican presence and persistence in Chicago. The designation of these flags will usher in a new chapter in the history of Puerto Ricans in Chicago as we move forward to having the state designated as Puerto Rico town. And the flags will obviously be a gem in the midst of the development that will take place here. Right now, between the two flags, we have 50 business and one of the largest collection of public art murals in Chicago. So we are obviously very pleased and honored to have these designated, the world's largest steel flags designated as landmarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Just for the record, that was for item number 2, the preliminary landmark recommendation for the Paseo Bourquois gateway flags at West Division Street. Is there anybody who signed up? Is there anybody else who signed up to speak on that item?
Yes, Chairman, we have again Preservation Chicago.
Okay, and that's for the Monumental Baptist Church, I believe. Item number 3.
Can you hear me all right?
Okay, we sure can.
Wonderful. Good afternoon, Chairman Wong, members of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks. This is Max Chavez, Director of Research and Special Projects for Preservation Chicago. We at Preservation Chicago continue to support the continuing preliminary landmark recommendation of Patton, Fisher, and Miller's Monumental Baptist Church at 729 East Oakwood. This church is one of the finest buildings designed by Norman Smith Patton, Reynolds Fisher, and Grant Miller, who together and separately built hundreds of important and wonderful buildings both in Chicago and across the U.S. As discussed during Landmark Staff's presentation last month, the church is an important and impressive architectural achievement, specifically its central lantern tower that dominates the building's profile. It's this lantern tower is a rare Chicago architectural feature and is a design popularized by Henry Hobson Richardson, which demonstrates the powerful legacy from which Monumental Baptist Church derives its origins. And it's certainly one of the more impressive and singular religious structures in all of Chicago. I also want to note once again that Patton and Fisher were the architects behind IIT's main building and Machinery Hall, both of which are officially designated Chicago landmark buildings, demonstrating that there is a clear precedent for the future landmarking of Monumental Baptist Church, thanks not only to the building's excellent design, but also its creation by architects that have already been honored and enshrined by other landmark designations. The church's architectural history, coupled with its role in the Bronzeville community as a center of Black faith, music, and politics, further makes the case for the landmarking of this building. We're thrilled to see Monumental Baptist Church move through this process towards landmarking, and we're hopeful that this signals a continued commitment to the landmarking of even more South and West Side sites of significance, especially those that are representative of the lived experiences of Chicago's communities of color. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez. Also, for the record, I'd like to make note that Commissioner Cox, as well as Commissioner Jekowitz, has joined us. So we do have a full commission here today. Next item was the members of the general public who'd like to comment on the 4th agenda item, the citywide Adopt a Landmark Fund application for the Emmett and Mammytale Mobley House at 6427 South St. Lawrence Avenue. Is there anybody signed up to speak on that?
Chairman, we have one hand raised by Preservation Chicago. And I also just want to remind that since one person joined on the phone later, that they can press *9 on their phone if they wish to speak. *9 will raise their hand.
Hello, Chairman Wong. Can you hear me okay?
We sure can. Thanks, Mary Lou.
Thanks. This is Mary Lou Seidel, Director of Community Engagement with Preservation Chicago. We are here in enthusiastic support of the Adopt a Landmark grant application by Blacks and Green to support its plans to restore the Till and Mammytale Mobley House into a museum and interpretation center. Emmett Till's story resounds around the world, putting a child's face to the horrors of lynchings and racism, further igniting the civil rights movement fighting for equity, justice, and inclusivity. The world saw what lynching looked like when Mamie Till Mobley chose to have an open casket visitation for her only child, Emmett, in 1955. This home tells the story of Emmett's life and death and the commitment of Mamie Till Mobley made to the world when she wanted to broadcast what had been done to her son. Our nation has not yet healed from the devastation of racism, but Blacks and Green is working to create a space where important conversations can be had, stories can be told, Black history can be elevated, and our city can grow in its awareness of each other's history and work toward the peace and forgiveness that Mamie Till Mobley worked the rest of her years for. Peace and forgiveness and justice. The Till family story weaves into the story of the Great Migration, with Mamie's family coming up to Chicago from Mississippi from the Jim Crow South. Great migration stories can also be a part of this center that Blacks and Green is operating, and Woodlawn was a hub for extraordinary Great Migration stories. Thank you again for your consideration, and it's been a pleasure testifying before you today. Thanks.
Thank you, Mary Lou. I saw that Alderwoman Taylor's hand is up. Alderwoman, would you like to speak now, or would you like to wait until the presentation? Up to you.
I can wait till the presentation. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you. Are there any members of the general public who'd like to comment on the fifth agenda item, the Class L property tax incentive final certification for the Chicago and Northwestern Railway office building at 226 West Jackson Boulevard?
Chairman, we have Mr. Ward Miller.
Great. Mr. Miller,
Can you hear me, Chairman Wong?
we sure can.
All right. Dear Chairman Wong and members of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks, I'm Ward Miller, Executive Director of Preservation Chicago. We at Preservation Chicago enthusiastically support the Class L property tax incentive for the Chicago and Northwestern Railway office building located at 226 West Jackson Boulevard. This highly visible building, located across the street from the Sears/Willis Tower, is an amazing building by architects Frost and Granger and a link to Chicago's early railroad history and as a center of transportation of both people and goods to and from Chicago. We are both pleased and grateful to support this exterior restoration and renovation, along with the reinvestment in one of our designated Chicago landmarks, as well as a reuse as 2 hotel operations. Such reuse efforts have been a key to the success of these early Chicago skyscrapers, and with 9 early Chicago skyscraper structures submitted as a potential UNESCO World Heritage Site looking to the future, we must do everything possible to save these early steel-framed buildings. Reuse efforts like this project are needed for many of our historic buildings in the downtown and central area looking to the future. So we at Preservation Chicago want to offer our full support for this Class L property tax incentive for 226 West Jackson, and kudos to the ownership and the design team. Commissioners and DPD staff, we also want to bring your attention, along with the general public, to the potential fate of 2 other historic early skyscrapers, both fronting State Street in the Loop, and part of the Loop Retail National Register District. It is imperative that the City of Chicago work to save and landmark the Century and Consumers Building by Halliburton Roche and Jenny, Mundy, and Jensen. These skyscrapers are the very last tall buildings of the Chicago School of Architecture, constructed in 1913 and 1915, and are endangered with a $52 million congressional earmark to demolish them. We need to landmark these buildings and reuse them with a new plan that would help secure the Chicago Federal Center, yet not demolish the structures. We have a group of religious organizations that wish to use these buildings as a collaborative archive center and want to encourage the city to do everything possible to save and reuse these structures with the GSA, the federal government, all as our collective partners. However, this all starts with a preliminary Chicago landmark designation. Thank you so much for considering both the Chicago Northwestern Railway Office Building Class L, as well as protecting the future of the Century and Consumers Building and making them Chicago landmarks.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. I believe that is it of all the members of the general public who've indicated they want to speak on agenda items. I'll make one last call if there's anybody further. Therefore, this concludes the public comment portion of the meeting. We'll go through the agenda. That first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. This was our regular meeting of March 3rd, 2022. Is there a motion to approve these minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Tolliver. And a second?
Second,
That
Commissioner
was-
Ponce.
Thank you, Commissioner Ponce. I'll just do a roll call real quick. Commissioner Jekowitz,
Yes.
Commissioner Cox,
Yes.
Commissioner Burns,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. The minutes are approved. Second item on the agenda is the preliminary landmark recommendation for the Paseo Bourquois gateway flags in the 26th Ward. This is at West Division Street at Artesian Avenue and Mozart Street. And I'd like to call on Matt Crawford for the report.
Thank you, Chairman. Can you hear me?
We sure can. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Commissioners. So in March 2019, some of you who were here will remember that the Commission adopted a context statement for community streetscape markers. This is the cover. As you know, these historic contexts are a foundation of preservation planning. The context statement narrated the relatively recent history of community streetscape markers that convey a neighborhood's social and cultural heritage. The context statement also identified 3 examples of these markers in Chicago that reflect this history well and which may be eligible as Chicago landmarks. These are the 20 rainbow pylons along North Halsted Street, which were designated as a Chicago landmark in 2019. And then more recently, the Little Village Arch on 26th Street, which was designated by City Council in January on your recommendation. And then finally, the context statement identified the twin steel gateway flags installed in 1995 at either end of a section of Division Street called Paseo Bourquois, which represent the Chicago's Puerto Rican community. So for your consideration today is a preliminary landmark recommendation for these Paseo Bourquois gateway flags. It would be really hard to overestimate the symbolic importance of the flag to the Puerto Rican people. And these 2 sculptural renditions of that symbol clearly mark the pride and social heart of Chicago's Puerto Rican community. Before I continue, I want to thank the authors of the designation report, which really articulates the cultural value of these sculptures. The authors were Jose Lopez, Executive Director of the Puerto Rican Cultural Center of Chicago, who you just heard from, as well as Eduardo Orocho, Executive Director of the Division Street Business Development Association. So I then really wanted to thank and acknowledge their contributions. Here's the map. The 2 gateway flags mark a 1/2 mile section of Division Street known as Paseo Bourquois. This is the economic, social, and cultural heart of the Puerto Rican community. We recommend that the flags meet 3 criteria for Chicago landmark designation, including criterion 1 for heritage. Many of the buildings on the Paseo Bourquois section of Division Street were built in the late 19th and early 20th centuries by European immigrants. So the addition of the Paseo Bourquois gateway flags in 1995 represents the Puerto Rican presence and persistence in the city of Chicago and the United States, given that the Puerto Rican flag is the most significant representation of Puerto Rican identity. In addition to the symbol of the flag itself, the welded steel tubes from which the sculptures are made have their own meaning, as these represent aspects of Chicago's industrial production in which Puerto Ricans played a major role in. Those were steel fabrication, pipeline construction, and highly technical welding. The Paseo Brookwood Gateway flags were dedicated on January 6, 1995, marking the most important day of the Puerto Rican calendar, Three Kings Day, or the Epiphany. 1995 also marks the century of the Puerto Rican flag itself, which was designed by pro-independence politician Antonio Velez Alvarado, living in exile in New York in 1895. The first flag was sewn by his daughter, Maria Besosa, shown here. Within a year of completion of the flag gateways on Division Street, the street quickly transformed. 16 new businesses opened in the first year, with a total of more than 90 businesses and organizations by the year 2000. The long history of Puerto Ricans in the Humboldt Park area was solidified and stabilized with several efforts, but benefited especially from the gateway flags. The importance of these sculptures is also reflected in murals on the Paseo that include depictions of them. The flags also meet criterion 4 as innovative and unique structures in Chicago. The design of the gateway flags successfully transformed rigid steel tubing and plate into a dynamic visual representation of flowing cloth. And the Paseo Bourquois flags are the largest flags in the world that are not made of cloth. They have been recognized with numerous awards, most notably the Building of the Year Award presented by the American Institute of Architects in 1995. Each flag weighs about 45 tons and rises up to 56 feet in the air, while spanning 59 feet across the width of Division Street. Each is built up with hundreds of steel tubes, and the structure exhibits a high level of technical excellence in steel design and fabrication. Finally, we believe that the sculptures meet criterion 7 as unique visual features in their neighborhood context. As towering symbols of the flag of Puerto Rico, a symbol of Puerto Rican consciousness and self-determination, the Paseo Bourquois gateway flags are a distinctive visual feature of the Humboldt Park neighborhood and unique sculptures in Chicago. In addition to the landmark criteria, the flags also meet the separate integrity criteria. The flags possess a high degree of integrity. They remain in their original location, and the setting on Division Street continues to be the heart of Chicago's Puerto Rican community, as it was when they were dedicated in 1995. The exceptional design value which renders steel into flowing cloth remains undiminished with the passage of time. Although nearly 3 decades have passed since their dedication, the flags remain an important symbol and point of pride for the Puerto Rican community. The context statement that I referenced at the beginning of my presentation establishes that in addition to the landmark criteria, community streetscape markers should also exhibit these requirements, that they employ or use symbolism or imagery that is significant and reflects certain social, ethnic, and cultural groups. The work should not just be a recognition of a geographic place. It must also be visible from the public right-of-way, and it must be a work of original art or architecture or design. It is not a stock piece or an element comprised of prefabricated components. Obviously, the flags meet these criteria. They are located in the 26th Ward, and Alderman Maldonado has expressed his complete support for the proposed designation, and he's asked us to move the designation process forward quickly in time that it be completed for September 2nd festivities around these flags. The Chicago Department of Transportation maintains these structures and they are fully in support of designation. We recommend that the significant features be identified all elevations of the two Paseo Bourquois gateway flags. That is the preliminary recommendation before you, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have. Representative from CDOT is also here, Dan Burke. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Does the commission have any questions of Matt at this time? Or any questions for Mr. Burke at CDOT? Commissioner Hughes, please.
Thank you. This is really exciting that a lot of, or we're moving in the direction of recognizing and saving pieces that really culturally identify with the communities, the surrounding communities they serve. And for this one in particular, I think the structure is amazing. Is there a plan to maintain it? Like, we can see that the colors are fading. I'm not sure. I'm sure there's wear and tear on the metal throughout the years as it's been there for a while. Is there a plan for maintenance on these, especially before September?
Yeah, Mr. Burke, can you respond to that, please?
Sure. Dan Burke, Managing Deputy Commissioner, Chicago Department of Transportation. Commissioner Wong, can you hear me okay?
We sure can, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hughes, thank you for your question. Yes, we plan to be, first off, we're grateful to be here today and are fully in support of this designation. In response to your question, we plan to be very responsible stewards of this important symbol of the Puerto Rican community within the city. In terms of maintenance of it, as you're aware, it's a solid tubular steel structure. We've reviewed it recently. It's in very good condition, very low, if any, rust or deterioration of it. What we would propose to do is inspect it regularly and keep it on a regular maintenance schedule, which would be painted, and we would maintain those original colors to their and the integrity of the structure.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Burke. Any other questions? Commissioner Burns.
Thanks, Commissioner Wong. First, just two comments. One, addressing Commissioner Hughes's question about the condition. I am a proud resident of Humboldt Park, have been for 20 years. I pass by Paseo Bourquois almost daily. And from a pedestrian and street view, they actually look like they're in great shape. I think the images might have something to do with lighting and the time of day. But as a casual observer, they have been kept up really well. So thank you, CDOT and Mr. Burke. I want to, both as a resident and as a commissioner, just say thank you to Mr. Lopez and Mr. Rocho for bringing this to the commission. It is such an important symbol for the community that I live in and captures so much the spirit and the pride of people. So I'm just delighted to see this come forward to the commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Burns. Is there anybody else?
I am too. This is Commissioner Ponce.
Please.
I'm so happy to see this, and I agree with Commissioner Burns, and it looks actually in pretty good shape. And I can't express how happy I am to see that we have come to this. And if anybody is familiar with the song, I can't pass under this gateway without singing the song, Que Bonita Bandera, and that's what a beautiful flag. And it's just such a sense of pride and culture that this is a great step forward. So I'm happy to be able to be a part of this.
Thank you, Commissioner Ponce. Commissioner Chekowitz.
Yes, thank you. I just kind of want to echo everyone's sentiments about this, and really happy to see this. Always, as a kid, was curious about these flags, and they're truly works of art, and put an exclamation point on the preservation of the history and the cultural identity of now Puerto Rico town. And so I just want to congratulate the leadership of Puerto Rican and local community on the advocacy to preserve the cultural identity of Humboldt Park. So I'm enthusiastic to support this.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Cox.
Yes, I share sentiments. my colleagues, and would say it's really fantastic when a piece of public art that belongs to the streetscape rises to the level of a kind of a monument for those residents. And I could not help but wonder a little bit about the process that led to the commissioning of this work, as CDOT and DPD are doing streetscapes across 10 geographies in Invest Southwest neighborhoods. And I think about, Austin and their image of themselves as the Soul City corridor of Chicago, and whether, something as iconic as this is just naturally going to come from the CDOT streetscape process, or was there something special that allowed this to rise to this level? And so I don't know if Mr. Burke was around or has the history, or whether Matt has the history, because I see an opportunity to create the next series of local monuments with the streetscape work that CDOT has in its pipeline.
Mr. Burke, do you want to respond to that? I certainly was around as well and recall that process very distinctly. But go ahead, Mr. Burke.
Certainly, Chairman Wong and Commissioner Cox, thank you for the question. I was around at the time with the Department of Transportation. It was an initiative that grew out of the community. I mean, not just the flags. I think the flags were really the crowning piece, but it was, as you alluded to, a streetscape and a creation of that entire corridor. And these flags at the time, it was a very bold endeavor, or inspirational endeavor to create these flags, and we were proud to be a part of it. In terms of streetscapes going forward, yes, we are. The team of the Chicago Department of Transportation, working very closely with your staff, are always looking to incorporate public art elements in the streetscapes and wherever possible to create senses of identity and community. I think this really sets a high mark of what we could strive to achieve. And I agree with your point that this really is a remarkable accomplishment dating back to 1995.
Yeah, and I'll probably add that, it was during that time, Augie Kitokimo was running the Streetscape program for CDOT. And this was created, I want to give credit to Jim DeStefano's firm, DeStefano and Partners, and particularly Ed Windhorst, who was really the creator of this. Ed actually has a welding shop somewhere, I believe in Wisconsin now, that's what he does in his retirement. But just the elegance of this particular piece with this tubular steel, being able to span across this amount of space with that thinness is really incredible. And so this was really one of the more spectacular pieces that was put up. They were also responsible, if you recall, for the Boys Town markers as well. And so there were a number of different components that DeStefano Partners were involved with at that time.
Well, there's certainly no greater compliment than, years later, communities push to have it landmarked. So I hope maybe we're creating the next landmarks on these corridors in the south and west side.
Yep. Commissioner Hughes, you had something else?
Yes. My last quick comment is I hope that there's a plaque created for this that shares a lot of that history and that story that you just shared with us, Chairman Wong. And I'm sure there's more stories around it that we learned about today in the presentation and that the community members know. I know for a fact that when I'm traveling through these neighborhoods and I see those plaques, I stop and read them. I want to know what the space is about. And I'm sure when the festivities are happening, for instance, these neighborhoods are getting a lot of influx of people from other parts of the city that could certainly learn about the history of these flags and this, really important identity piece.
Thank you, Commissioner Hughes. And I believe that there is a effort, Commissioner Cox, correct me if I'm wrong, between DPD and DCASE and CDOT in terms of some of these public pieces that are monumental.
Yeah, and I know that there is a percent for art in the infrastructure bond that was passed that guarantees that there could be commissioned art as a part of our improvements to public infrastructure.
To the
So,
public way.
yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Tolliver, did you?
Yes, just to follow up on Commissioner Hughes' statement. I hope that when we place these plaques in bilingual neighborhoods, that they're printed in both the local language that some people may still speak and in English, so that everybody has access to it. I remember several years ago, I was traveling in Ghana, and this was during the time when HIV education was prominent, and we Americans were very impressed by all the signs printed in English talking about HIV, and our Ghanaian guide said, yeah, that looks great, but these people don't read in English. So it's important for us to be sensitive to that.
Thank you, Commissioner Tolliver. All right, with that, no other questions or comments. I'd like to request a motion to adopt the preliminary landmark recommendation for the Paseo Bourquois gateway flags. Is there?
So moved, Sue Ellen Burns.
Thank you, Commissioner Burns. Is there a second?
Second, Commissioner Ponce.
Commissioner Ponce, seconds. Do the quick roll call. Commissioner Jekowitz,
Yes.
Commissioner Cox,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
and Commissioner Tolliver.
Yes.
I am a yes also. The motion passes unanimously. Congratulations. And hopefully this gets done by the Alderman's big day. So let's move this along. Okay, the next item is the report from the Department of Planning and Development on the Monumental Baptist Church building in the 4th Ward. This is located at 729 East Oakwood Boulevard. And Commissioner Cox, this is yours.
All right. Yeah, patience. Deanna, I'm looking for the script. Okay, one moment, please. Okay, thank you. One moment, just getting my window here situated. So, thank you. The Department of Planning and Development finds that the proposed landmark designation of Monumental Baptist Church supports the city's overall planning goals for the surrounding neighborhood and is consistent with the city's governing policies and plans. Next slide. Monumental Baptist is located in Bronzeville, one of 10 neighborhoods that are part of DPD's Invest Southwest Community Improvement Initiative. Our goal is to reactivate neighborhood cores that have historically served as focal points for pedestrian activity, shopping, services, transportation, public space, and quality of life amenities for residents. In Bronzeville, the priority corridor is Cottage Grove Avenue and adjacent blocks on 43rd and 47th Streets, which is 5 blocks from 5 blocks south on a Monumental. Next slide. As part of Invest Southwest, DPD's approach in Bronzeville began in 2020 with understanding the community's needs. That outreach revealed several priorities, including the importance of aesthetics in the built environment and the community's pride in its history and culture. Landmark designation of Monumental Baptist Church will support these values. Next slide. Also in 2020, DPD issued an RFP for redevelopment of 0.6 acres of vacant city-owned land in Bronzeville on the southwest corner of 47th Street and Vincent Avenue. Last summer, DPD announced the selection of the Legacy District, a $19.2 million redevelopment that will create a 6-story building containing 12,000 square feet of commercial space and 25 mixed income residential units. The project will generate 174 permanent jobs and 140 construction jobs. Our planning work in Bronzeville and Invest Southwest as a whole is committed to design excellence, which includes strengthening the culture of our communities, committing to cultural longevity and environmental sustainability. These goals are also consistent with a landmark designation of historic works of high quality design, exemplified by Monumental Baptist Church. Apologies. I think next slide. I think that was my last slide. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That was the last slide, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Commissioner. I understand that a representative of the congregation has indicated that she would like to make a statement. Ms. Newsom.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
All right. I am happy to be here to represent Monumental Baptist Church. This church has played a role down through the years in the Bronzeville community and continues to participate in the greater activities of the Bronzeville community. Monumental Church has served as more or less the meeting headquarters for the ongoing Chicago Housing Authority Plan for Transformation, was actively involved in the process for the creation and development of the old Ida B. Wells development, which is presently Oakwood Shores, and it continues to serve as a place of recognition to various entities that utilize our facilities. Some of you may or may not be aware of the fact that the Chicago Fire, Med, and PD series, they utilize the premises of Monumental Baptist Church along with other production entities, and we'd like to continue to play a role as far as the history, the ongoing history, past, present, and future of the greater Bronzeville community, and would certainly appreciate the Commission's consideration for our landmark status. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Newsom. Commissioner Tolliver, you had your hand up. Commissioner Tolliver.
Can our tech support put the image of the Monumental Baptist Church up on the screen while we're talking about it? Thank you.
I'd just like for us to acknowledge Ms. Newsom. Formerly, she is a former Alderman Newsom.
Yes.
So, and she is the gatekeeper of that neighborhood as well as being a member of Monumental. So when she speaks, people listen.
Yes, yes, sir. They sure do.
Thank you.
We've worked together on many things over the years.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there any questions or comments by the commission regarding this project? If not, I'd like to request a motion to accept the department's report for Monumental Baptist Church building and take the next step in the designation process to request consent from the property owner. Is there a motion?
So moved, Commissioner Hughes.
Commissioner Hughes, thank you. Second,
Second,
Commissioner Tolliver. Do the roll call. Commissioner Jackwitz,
Yes.
Commissioner Cox,
Yes.
Commissioner Burns,
Yes.
Commissioner Ponce,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. Congratulations. Let's move this thing along. This is great. Thank you, Ms. Newsom. Appreciate it.
Okay.
The next item on the agenda is the citywide Adopt a Landmark Fund application for the Emmett Till and Mammytale Mobile House in the 20th Ward. This is located at 6427 South St. Lawrence Avenue. And Dan Kleiber, if you would tell us what's going on here.
Can you hear me okay?
We sure can. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you. At the December 2021 Commission meeting, we informed you of 12 projects that DPD conditionally awarded grants to from the 2021 Adopt a Landmark application funding round. You may recall that each of the projects are required to come back to the Commission for a vote once their scope and budget are fully developed. One of the applicants, BIG NFP, or Blacks and Green Not-for-Profit, the owner of the Emmett Till and Mammytale Mobley House, has finalized the budget and scope for their project. The owner is requesting $249,541 in Adopt a Landmark funds for exterior restoration work totaling approximately $287,000. For orientation, the Emmett Till House is located at 6427 South St. Lawrence Avenue within the Woodlawn Community Area and the 20th Ward, Alderwoman Jeanette Taylor's ward. Constructed in 1895, this modest two-flat was the home of Emmett Till and his mother, Mamie Till Mobley, at the time that Emmett's young life was brutally taken from him in 1955 in rural Mississippi. The Emmett Till and Mamie Till Mobley House was designated as a Chicago landmark on January 26, 2021. Overall, the scope of work for the Adopt a Landmark project will prepare the building for occupancy and includes various masonry, window, door, porch, and roof work. Pictured before you is a sample of the various condition issues that will be addressed, including the deteriorated front porch, which will be replaced, masonry in need of cleaning and tuck pointing, the cornice, which will be scraped and repainted, glass block and other window openings, which will be replaced with new windows, and general tuck pointing that will be performed on all side elevations as well. More specifically, the drawings before you show the proposed work to the north and west or primary elevations, including all new windows, a new front door, replaced porch and removed awning, as well as the work to the cornice, general tuck pointing, masonry cleaning, a portion of the parapet wall which is to be rebuilt, and roof replacement. Before you here are the south and east elevations, showing the same general scope, new windows, masonry, and roof work. When completed in the future as the Emmett Till and Mamie Till Mobley House Museum by Blacks and Green, the building will become a site for commemoration, celebration, and continuation of the legacies of the Till family and the Great Migration in the Till House. Before you is a photo from last summer's ice cream social and landmark plaque unveiling event at the house. The resolution before you to grant the Adopt a Landmark funds to the applicant includes an Exhibit A, which outlines the scope of work and budget, which I just summarized, and which includes $249,541 in grant funds for the $287,839 project. This resolution and drawings were included in your packets. In addition, Exhibit A includes the main conditions associated with the project. In summary, the conditions are that all work must be submitted to DPD for prior review and approval. The work must be done in accordance with the Secretary of the Interior standards. The applicant will notify staff of any undocumented conditions. The applicant will enter into an escrow agreement to assure the project is completed and paid for in a timely manner. And the applicant will also provide to DPD the necessary documentation of the project so that staff can also give an informational overview of the project to the commission once it is completed. Should you vote to approve the project, the department will then enter into a written agreement with the applicant that will incorporate the resolution. Blacks and Green anticipates beginning work later this summer. Again, the project is located in the 20th Ward, and Alderman Taylor is here today with us to speak about the project. In addition, Blacks and Green team members Nuri Medina, as well as project architect Dana Robinson, are also all here to answer any questions that you may have. And I am happy to answer any questions that you may have in general or about the grant agreement process. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Before I turn the floor over to Alderwoman Taylor, is there any questions of Dan at this time regarding the work? Okay, if not, Alderwoman Taylor, floor is yours.
Thank you, Commissioner. Until lions have their own historians, the story will always glorify the hunters. The story of Emmett Till is a very important one because Emmett Till was not the first, and ultimately in 2022, he is not the last. Too often the death of Black children goes unheard. Not only the death of Emmett Till, but the countless amount of Black women who are missing from our community. Too often those stories are told, never really given real content, and I don't quite understand sometimes that young people don't get to hear these stories. It is very important to our community that the story is told and it is not forgotten. We still face some of these inequities today, and as a mother, Mamie was very brave to allow the world to see what racism ultimately had done to her son. And so for folks in the 20th Ward, we want that history not to be hidden, because too often we're not told our history or we're lied to about our history. Think about this woman who we're trying to confirm as the first Black woman to be in the space, and they're bringing up critical race history. Critical race theory. And that's because we know the folks who have killed people in the past are still alive. You're ashamed to tell that American history and its truth. And so this is important to the 20th Ward because it talks about our great history, good and bad. And too often this country often sweeps that history under the table. I'm honored and grateful to have Blacks and Greens in the community. And I'm also grateful that I'm hopeful that the commission will allow this project to go through. This is a home that's not far from where I live. And I won't have to go to a museum for my child to learn this history. I can walk in my own community. And so thank you to all the commission members, Commissioner Cox, Blacks and Greens, Naomi Green, and the community for bringing this project to light and allowing our history to be told.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Does the commission have any questions for Alderwoman Taylor?
It's not a question as much as just an acknowledgement of her leadership in bringing this, being a steward and a champion for the Emmett Till House. There was a lot of work done behind the scenes to make this happen, and I just welcome the fact that she felt so strongly about it. And I now understand even more so why she stepped forward and exerted her leadership. And I think the ward and the city and the world will now be able to honor this story. And thankfully for the work of this commission, it will be restored, and something that we can all be proud of. So thank you, Alderman Taylor.
Thank you, Commissioner Cox. Mr. Medina, would you like to have word?
Yes, I would first like to thank the Department of Planning and Development for your very strong support over these months in making this happen. And also Alderman Taylor for her very strong support. This is a very historic moment in that we've decided to preserve a legacy and a history that has not just impacted African Americans here, but it's a symbol of our commitment and impact on the whole country and the whole world. It's also such a very, very important focus for our work in West Woodlawn and our attempt to revive it as a sustainable square mile and a great migration location where we can come and view our history and see a true interpretation of our history and our culture. So again, I thank the Department of Planning, Mr. Crawford, Mr. Claber, Commissioner Cox, and Alderman Taylor, and I really appreciate your continued support in our efforts in West Woodlawn.
Thank you, Mr. Medina. Hey, for the record, could you state your name and your full name and the organization? We all know
Yes,
it.
yes,
Say it for the recording.
Yes, sir. My name is Nuri Medina, and I'm a project manager and a staff manager for Blacks in Green. That's big NFP, and our president and CEO, Naomi Davis.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Are there any questions for Mr. Benita? Are there any further? Commissioner Hughes, go ahead, please.
Yes, I'm actually walking distance from the Emmett house in Alderman Taylor's ward, and to see the camaraderie and the community support around this important moment right now has been so humbling, and just a whole kind of atmosphere to soak up. It's crazy because I think the community knows my dog more than me. My giant puppy, he's over 100 pounds, and we show up to any and everything that we can to support Naomi and Alderman Taylor and everything that's happening here, and kind of galvanizing, you know, the growth and the trajectory of West Woodlawn right now. It's an incredible kind of moment to be a part of. I'm honored, I'm here. And I want to say too that to Alderman Taylor's point earlier, you know, my child would not have to go to a museum to learn about Mammytale either, but we are doing this so that those children around us that need to go to the museum, it is there, you know, and our history will be preserved and shared with everyone around us and everyone that needs to take it in. So I am 100% all hands, all fingers and toes in support of this moment right now.
Thank you, Commissioner. I don't see any other hands. With that, I'd like to request a motion to approve the resolution for a citywide Adopt a Landmark Fund grant for the Emmett and Mammytale Mobley House. Is there a motion?
So moved, Commissioner Hughes.
Okay, second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Tolliver. We'll go through the roll call. Commissioner Jackwitz.
Yes.
Commissioner Cox.
Yes.
Commissioner Burns.
Yes.
Commissioner Ponce.
Yes.
And I am a resounding yes. Congratulations. Yes.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you so much. The motion carries. Okay, the last item on, well, not the last item. Excuse me.
I was like, we got to do this today.
Oh, yeah. Next item on the agenda is the Class L property tax incentive final certification for the Chicago and Northwestern Railway Office Building located at 226 West Jackson Boulevard in the 42nd Ward. And Deanna, you have the honors.
Thank you, Chairman. Certification of the scope of work and budget for a Class L project is the final step by the Commission to administer this incentive. This certification would then be used by the building owner to complete their application with the Cook County Assessor. On May 20th, 2020, the City Council designated the Chicago and Northwestern Railway Office Building as a Chicago landmark and approved a Class L real estate property tax incentive for the building at the same meeting. The 14-story building designed by Cross and Granger was constructed in 1905 and served as the headquarters for the Chicago and Northwestern Railway until 1929. The building remained an office building housing the Chicago City College's offices since 1978 and was tax exempt. A copy of the Class L ordinance and exhibits, as well as the final report from the owner, which documents the completed project, was in your packets. The project is also taking advantage of the 20% federal rehabilitation tax credit. The owner purchased the building in 2020 and rehabilitated it into 2 hotels. The exterior work included masonry repair and replacement, including tuck pointing as necessary to address all condition issues and cleaning of all facades. Brick parapets were coated to match the surrounding masonry. The majority of the existing windows were retained and repaired. Cast iron ornamental spandrels, mullions, sills, and jambs were retained and repaired as needed. A stone door surround and pediment were reintroduced at the secondary entrance on Franklin based on historic photos. Non-historic infill within select basement window openings were removed and replaced with new clear story windows to match historic conditions. The project also included construction of a new 1-story rooftop addition, providing approximately 3,700 square feet of bar and event space and an outdoor deck. The interior scope of work included full rehabilitation into 2 hotels with lobbies for each hotel, 350 rooms and associated amenities, work to stairs and elevators, new HVAC, plumbing, electrical, and fire protection systems. The initial budget for Class L eligible expenses was around $74 million. The owner has spent $86.8 million for Class L eligible scope of work, which is $12.7 million more than initially estimated. In total, the owner invested $148 million in the project. The project complies with the Chicago Sustainable Development Policy. It is estimated that 458 temporary construction jobs were created, and it is also anticipated that operation of the 2 hotels will create approximately 340 permanent jobs. Staff recommends that the commission certify completion of the Class L project, and the representatives of the owner are here if you have any questions for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Deanna. Ms. O'Keefe, would you like to make a statement?
Hello, Mr. Chairman. Bridget O'Keefe, Daspin and Almond. I'm here today on behalf of the applicant. I appreciate the opportunity to speak, but I actually think it would be more appropriate if the owner, who is also here, could make just a very brief statement. I'd like to just say thank you to staff and everyone for helping us move this project forward. As always, it's greatly appreciated. And I'd like to turn it over to John Mangle with Phoenix Development Partners, who is the owner of the property.
Thank you, Bridget. Mr. Mangle.
Thank you, Bridget. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, the committee and staff of the City of Chicago for providing us the opportunities to bring these 2 hotels to fruition and add them to the City of Chicago. We're very grateful for the opportunity, and we think we've delivered 2 beautiful hotels, which will be important contributors to taxes and guest experiences and the economic vitality of the City of Chicago going forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mangle. Does the commission have any questions of anybody on this project or comments on this? This is a great project. Thank you for taking the time to do this. And with that, I'd like to request a motion that the commission certifies that the project has been substantially completed in accordance with the approved ordinance and meets the eligibility requirements for the Class L incentive for the Chicago and Northwestern Railway office building. Is there a motion?
So moved, Commissioner
So
Jacobowitz.
moved. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Commissioner Burns.
Second by Commissioner Burns. Commissioner Cox,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes, Commissioner Hughes.
I said yes. Did
Oh, I'm
did you
sorry.
hear me?
Didn't
Sorry.
hear you. Commissioner Ponce,
Yes.
Commissioner Tolliver,
Yes,
and I am also a yes. The motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, folks.
Thank you.
And
Thank you very much. We
Thank you.
appreciate it.
you bet. Next item on the agenda is the program committee report. And these were suggestions received from the public for possible Chicago landmark designations. And Commissioner Tolliver, this is yours.
I want to report that the program committee met on March 29th, 2022 to hear public comments on 15 suggestions for possible Chicago landmark designation that have been received from the public since the previous program committee meeting. The suggestions and comments have been forwarded to Historic Preservation Division staff for further review and consideration. No action by the full commission is needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Tolliver. Are there any questions for Commissioner Tolliver? If not, we'll go on to the next item, which is the report on project reviews, the project permit review committee reports. And Commissioner Jekowitz, please.
Chairman, the Permit Review Committee reviewed 4 projects at its March 3rd, 2022 meeting. All 4 projects were approved with conditions. The report summarizing the scope of the proposed projects and the committee's decisions was included in your packets. This report is for your information and for the record.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Emily, you have the report?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. For the month of March, staff reviewed 160 permit applications. 2 of these related to projects reviewed by the PRC. A total of 183 reviews were performed by staff, and the average number of days to issue approval or corrections was 3.4 days.
Thank you, Emily. Are there any questions for Commissioner Jekowitz or for Emily on the permit review committee reports? If not, that is it for today. I'd like to call for a motion to adjourn. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second, Commissioner Ponce.
All in favor, say aye. There we go.
Aye.
Okay. Have a wonderful day. Thank you. And Commissioner Jekowitz, when's the permit review committee starting?
Let's start the Permit Review Committee meeting at 2:10.
Sounds great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all.